Hey friends, Elena Motonono here. I am back with a new series where I will be walking you through the process of moving away from one-to-one classes. I'm using my own story as an anchor for the series, and this is the story that I've used so many times, and I inspired other online language teachers to move away from one-to-one classes into more sustainable model of teaching. Now, you will ask me, what does that mean to teach languages in a more sustainable way? And here's what it is in a nutshell. First of all, you have more freedom and flexibility. You're not locked in front of the screen for half of the day or maybe the whole day sometimes if you have too many classes. You also have the passion to teach languages, and you are not secretly wishing that people are going to write to you and cancel the lessons. And finally, and most importantly, this is a way for you to get to detach your pay per hour from the time you actually spend in front of the screen. You will be able to get paid for the value that you bring as opposed to the number of hours that you spend in front of the screen. And I know you and I will probably agree that the number of hours that we spend in front of the screen, if our pay is connected to that, this is pretty scary because that locks us in a situation where we can't take a break, we can't get sick, we can't reschedule classes because then we will burn out. And all of these things are really critical for us if we want to work more sustainably. Now, I know most online teachers talk about transitioning from one-to-one classes into teaching courses and launching courses and selling them. But there's one thing that people don't realize, that there is a huge gap between doing one-to-one and going into a course creation mode. There is a lot of learning in between, and it's almost like you go from, using our language learning lingo here, you go from beginner level to advanced without much skills build up. And going through the process that I will outline here in the series will give you a lot more sustainable picture of how you can do that without really exhausting yourself in the process. Because if you're not prepared and if you don't know how to teach in a way that does not put you in front of the screen, if you don't learn to get yourself out of the bind and predicament where you're constantly paid for the hours you spend on the screen, you are not going to be able to launch and sell courses successfully where your presence is basically not needed at all other than in marketing and sales. So what I will be talking about is this important transition, and I encourage you to take a look at every step of this transition and learn from it as you go. And I hope that the doodles that I will be using will give you more clarity in this process. So I'm going to show you how I actually moved away from one-on-one classes and what it meant for me. So here's my picture, my little doodle. And in order for the transition to happen, I had to come to terms with the fact that no matter how much I loved one-on-one, these kinds of classes were really exhausting because as it happened, each of my clients had their own goals, right? And each of them had their own need. And when I worked with them, I ended up, no matter how hard I tried, and even though I tried to make it more organized, I created different plans for each of the clients, which meant that I had a completely different preparation, workflow, and lessons for each of these students. And even though I kind of got over the fact that, oh, I don't really need to do all the bells and whistles, I don't need to do individual maybe PowerPoints for each of the client. But what ended up happening is that each of these students required some kind of separate type of support. So one person was an IELTS client, one person was a business client, one person was a speaking, one person was just a beginner, and so forth. There were some children in there too. So no matter how hard I tried to make it sort of similar for everybody, it just didn't happen that way. So this 1 hour that I had with each client easily, turned into 2 hours because of the preparation and all the work that went behind the scenes. So I realized that in order for me to create a sustainable format, one thing had to happen, and that is I had to say no. So I had to practice saying no to certain things until I got really comfortable with that. And the first thing that I said no to on my way to a more sustainable teaching is this whole hustling with each of the clients and working and quote unquote tailoring my classes to their needs. So instead, I decided I am going to choose people that needed one specific skill that I enjoyed. And this is not niching yet. At the time, I wasn't really thinking, oh, this is my niche. What I had to think about is what were the things that I hated and what was the thing that I enjoyed doing and that all of my clients benefited from when they worked with me. So my no's were no more kids. I just couldn't teach to kids anymore. It was quite clear for me. No more business English. I taught ESL, and I said no more business English. That was done. Then I said no more grammar. Even though I really enjoyed teaching grammar, I felt like I didn't want to do that anymore. No more beginners. It was a lot of work, and I felt like I would be better suited if I could work on something with people that were pre-intermediate to intermediate level. And when I took a look at all the people I had taught teaching and that got the most out of it, I asked myself, well, what is the thing that I taught them that they really enjoyed learning from me and that I enjoyed teaching? And all of that was speaking. So there was one skill, and it seemed like all of my students had this struggle with they understood but couldn't speak in Russian because that was where most of my clients were from at the time. We had this phrase, I'm like a dog, I understand everything but I can't speak. So most of them said exactly. So I felt like, okay, I really enjoy teaching and improving on people's speaking skills, so I'm just going to encourage and only work with people that are at about the same stage of learning, and I would actually try and help them improve their own speaking skills using the same module. And the model would be practice. I'm going to write it. practice, prompts, and feedback. And when I looked at that, I realized they don't need to see me one-on-one for these aspects. I can do that through a phone, through the voice chat apps. And this is the time when they were just coming out. And I thought, wouldn't it be great, all of these clients into my class and charge them the same amount and give them the same prompts for speaking and give them feedback, but make sure that they learn on a regular basis, which is something that they all struggled with, right? And we'll see what comes out of it. So now what I want to do is to show you how all of these clients were kind of the same, and because it allowed me to teach them the same way, which saved a lot of time on prep work, right? A lot of time on prep work, and I did not have to do the stuff that I absolutely hated. Okay, so if you get stuck, if you're thinking of, okay, I don't want to do one-on-ones, and I want to do something more sustainable, you know, for example, using voice chats, and invite people to a 3-week program where all you're doing is sending them prompts and giving them instructions on how to answer those prompts, and you use the voice chats. One of the things that is really important is to instead of, a lot of teachers like get hung up on, well, I can't really because I haven't figured out my niche. So you don't really need to, and I know I would be one of those people, oh, figure out your niche. And I actually have a workshop on that, and you can check it out. I will include it in the description. But a lot of people get stuck in that, oh, I need a niche, and then it just takes them forever. So instead of figuring out what my niche is, decide what you absolutely do not want to teach anymore, and then choose the one thing that you don't hate, that actually your students enjoyed working with you on. So here I'm going to get all different kinds of students because they were coming from all walks of life. And whether I wanted it, I was spending a lot of time accommodating all of their needs because, you know, I promised to them that I will cater to their needs, instead of really polishing what I could do well and focusing only on the skills that the few of them wanted the most. So, of course, there were some of them that I really enjoyed working with, and there they are. And so this is who I ended up choosing for my programs. And sometimes when you move away from one-to-one classes, this is the hard part. The hard part is to say no. It's to say no to the people because you feel like you are not professional enough then. Well, I hope this was helpful for you. I really enjoyed sharing with you my journey from one-to-one classes to a more sustainable format. And if you want to learn more, you can check out in the description. There's a link where you can sign up to get my Smart Teachers Kit, where you can explore more options of teaching languages online that do not require you to be locked in front of the screen for too long. Thank you so much for being here. Please subscribe and leave comments. If you have any questions, I would love to engage with you. And if you want to hear more from me, again, you can sign up. In the description, there's a link to get the Smart Teachers Kit and then receive my newsletters.